It's your boy Rude Dog. Check this out, man. We got some new shit for you. It's time for you to open your mind. But yo, let's keep it real though. Now, we get ready to explore the book of Lucifer. You know, basically the satanic Bible. But you got to have an open mind about this. I'm not telling you to switch religions. I'm not telling you to get down with Lucifer or any of that. So don't get that twisted. Let's go ahead and get that out the way. I'm not saying be down with Lucifer. I'm not saying get down with any of this. I'm just saying have an open mind and be willing to learn. Now, this is an adult channel. Adult things do happen. Adult things do go on. You will hear me talking crazy things. You will hear me smoking at times. You probably hear me coughing if I don't mute it in time. But other than that, though, here's what it is. We about to get on off into it. This is the book of Lucifer, explained, broke down for the simple-minded people to get advanced mind thinking on this. You know what I mean? Check it out, man. Remember, I am not telling you to get down with Lucifer. I'm not telling you to get down with the devil. Any of that. I'm not trying to convert nobody. This for learning purposes only.
Hello, Neogenians. Welcome to Dawn of the New Earth. My name is Morgan. I'm an ex-Christian revealing hidden knowledge to create a new world. Today, we are exploring the book of Lucifer, forbidden knowledge that absolutely terrifies the church. Now, this information that we're going to be looking at today outlines the philosophy of Satanism and is associated with the Enlightenment and the element of air. So we're going to be taking a look at the satanic interpretation of Lucifer as we explore the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey. And it's going to be very good, very interesting. And we're also going to be comparing it to some of the work by Friedrich Nietzsche in his declaration that God is dead and we have killed him, and seeing how that aligns very much. You're going to see a lot of similarities between Nietzsche's philosophy there with the book of Lucifer laid out in the Satanic. So we're going to get started right away. It's going to be good. On the last stream, very blasphemous. So if you're someone who's easily offended, this is not the video for you. But we're going to get started. As always, please hit like and subscribe. And if you enjoy my work, become a member here on YouTube by hitting the join button right below this video, or on Patreon. And if you hit the join button, you can see all the different perks you'll get. You can get access to all of our members only videos. There's a new one every single week. You can get access to our Discord server where we have study sessions every Sunday. A lot of great stuff. Check it out. And it's the best way to support the channel. Appreciate it very much. I want to also remind you that my book series is being released one book at a time. And so my first book is out, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind, which describes how to structure the psyche rationally in preparation for higher consciousness, and Meta-Rationalism, the new science of mind that explains how this is a mathematical reality and we are eternal beings of mind. And you can check that out. It is in the description. Links are in the description of this video. And of course, follow me on Spotify. Look up Dawn of the New Earth on Spotify.
Wow.
All right, my friends, let's begin. We are...
Now that he got his promo out the way, wait for a second, but I'll be
diving
back
into the book of Lucifer as we explore the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey. Now, what is this all about? I want to remind you that Satan and Lucifer are very different archetypes. If you haven't seen my video called Satanism versus Luciferianism, I highly recommend that you go watch it because they're very different. But what I want to emphasize to you today is that what we are looking at in terms of the book of Lucifer and the archetype of Lucifer is the satanic interpretation of Lucifer, not the Luciferian interpretation, the satanic interpretation. So according to the satanic interpretation of Lucifer, Lucifer, along with Satan, is one of the four crowned princes of hell. And each one of these crowned princes of hell represent a different archetype within the system of Satanism. So book one, let me just get this on screen for me. So book one is associated with fire and is the book of Satan. We read that last week. If you want to check that out, by the way, this is a whole playlist. Check out the playlist. Today, we're looking at book two, which is associated with air and the book of Lucifer. And there's also, of course, book three, which is associated with earth, the book of Belial, and the book of Leviathan. So what are the differences here? What can we understand before we really dive into this stuff? We read the Book of Satan last week, which is associated with fire. And what it essentially is a, because Satan is a Hebrew word that means adversary. So it was basically a condemnation of God, an attack on God, and an attack on Christianity, a condemnation. And so it was very adversarial and fiery and opposed to God and Christianity, an attack on Christian values, values associated with God, etc. The book of Lucifer is associated with knowledge and enlightenment. So what the book of Lucifer is doing is it's still very critical of Christianity, but what it's trying to do is lay out the philosophy of Satanism, where the book of Satan was fire and was all opposition. This is laying out more in depth what Satanism is and what Satanism stands for, because Lucifer and Satanism associated with enlightenment and knowledge. So it's bringing you knowledge of what the satanic system actually is.
Okay, so basically then he trying to break down and tell us that Satan ain't what he is. Go check that out. Give him a check.
Okay, so that's what we're going to be taking a look at. And let's just start right away. Like I said, I'm going to compare it as well to Friedrich Nietzsche, because they are both this comparison is very, if you haven't seen last week's, by the way, check it out, because we compared the book of Satan to the Antichrist. And today we're going to be comparing the book of Lucifer to his statement, God is dead. And the reason why we're doing this, by the way, is because they're very similar. And you can see how LaVey was highly influenced by Nietzsche. You know, as I said before, Christian, but I was never a Satanist. I never became a Satanist. I was introduced to Nietzsche's philosophy well before I read LaVey's Satanic Bible. And so I'm much more, and it's not just because I read it first, but as we go forward, I'll explain to you why I am much more influenced by Nietzschean philosophy than Satanic philosophy. But we'll take that bit by bit. But let's just right now at the book of Lucifer. Let's start. So it says, "It has been said, the truth will make men free. But the truth alone has never set anyone free. It is only doubt which will bring mental emancipation. Without the wonderful element of doubt, the doorway through which truth passes would be tightly shut, impervious to the most strenuous poundings of 1,000 Lucifers." So first of all, I agree absolutely 100%. Like, the system that I promote is the Neogenian system, and the Neogenian system is founded on the method of doubt. And that's, so I am in this, is that doubt is required to understand truth. And LaVey is saying here, without doubt, the mind would be impervious to the poundings of 1,000 Lucifers. What does that mean? Well, remember, Lucifer is someone who brings knowledge. So unless someone has doubted their beliefs, unless someone has doubted what they believe, it doesn't matter how much truth someone is trying to bring them, because they've already shut their mind to it, because faith has blinded them. And I agree with this point 100%. And this is what, Neogenesis, my first bout, applying the method of doubt to remove all the systems of brainwashing and conditioning, so you can even be ready to understand these higher concepts. So I'm completely down with that.
Now, see, that's the same concept I talk about when I say closed-minded people, because a lot of people in this world refuse to think. That's the problem. People don't want to think. People don't want to figure nothing out. People just go off the first instinct and run with it. See, that's the problem with America. But other than that, though, that's why I say the world's too programmed for me. Let's get past that. But let's get back to this video, though, because he's getting on a strong point. But then again, I'm telling you, this is not about converting you to Lucifer or nothing like that of any sort.
And this is also very similar to a quote by Aleister Crowley. Let me see if I can find it real quick. The quote by Aleister Crowley is, "I slept with faith and found a corpse in my arms on awakening. I drank and danced all night with doubt and found her a virgin in the morning. So basically, faith is associated with a corpse. It's something that leads to stillness, being dead. Whereas doubt just gives and gives and gives is essentially what it's saying. It's completely, it's renewing and it brings truth. That's essentially what Crowley is trying to say here. And but anyway, I completely agree with LeVay on this. I think that that's an excellent point. And let's continue. LeVay says, how understandable that Holy Scripture should refer to the infernal monarch as the father of lies. A magnificent example of character inversion. So they're saying, LeVay is saying that referring to Satan as the father of lies is an inversion. If one is to believe accusation that the devil represents falsehood, then it surely must be concurred that it was he, not God, that established all spiritual religions and he who wrote all of the holy Bibles. So this is a very interesting point. What LeVay is saying is that to call Satan a liar is backwards. And LeVay says, if Satan were actually a liar, then Satan would have created all the world's religions and wrote, obviously he's saying these are all lies. So if Satan were the father of lies, he would be the author of all religions. But of course, according to Satanism, he's not. And so he's saying that it's not, Satan isn't a liar because that's the position of Satanism. However, it is very, very interesting that the Gnostics and the Cathars came to this conclusion in a very different way. The Gnostics and the Cathars said, you're right. Satan wrote the Bible. The Gnostics didn't say Satan wrote the Bible. The Bible wasn't out yet, wasn't compiled yet in the time of the Gnostics. But depending on what era we're talking about here, but the very early Christians, but they said that a lot of scripture was essentially evil and satanic. A lot of the Gnostics believed that the world was created by an evil being, the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible was essentially the devil, and the Cathars agreed. The Cathars were a medieval sect of Christians around the 1100 and medieval times, and they believed that Satan fooled the world, and they believed that Satan actually inspired the Bible and tricked the world into thinking that he was God. So it's kind of funny that, you know, you have groups of early Christians and the Cathars who believe in something similar that LeVay was talking about in terms of.
Okay, now hold up. Now see, the part where he's getting ready to Bible, like I said, I just studied a lot of religions, and this is one of them. When you go into the LeVay Bible, it's basically the opposite of what the Bible is. This reads more like it's giving you advice and telling you the other side of the story. Watch, once you sit back and hear him say these verses of the Satanic Bible, it's gonna trip you out. Because not only do it almost say the same thing, but it says the opposite at the same time. It's wild shit.
Coming to a similar conclusion.
I already read it. I read it like 4 times. It's some wild shit.
LeVay is coming at from the opposite end by saying, no, that's not true. I don't know. I think you get the connection there. I won't beat it into the ground, but it's interesting, right? It's interesting how a lot of people are coming to similar conclusions, but they're talking about it in different ways. So, for example, the Cathars said, oh my God, the Bible is evil. It must have been inspired by Satan. Whereas LeVay goes, oh my God, the Bible is evil. God is evil. Satan must be the liberator. So coming to the same conclusions, but you see, they're using the archetypes in different ways. Whereas Satanism embraces the archetype, the Cathars used the archetype of evil as that which inspired the Bible. Let's continue. I think you get what I mean. It's just cool to see all the different ideas here. So let's continue. So this section in the book of Lucifer is called Wanted, God, Dead or Alive. Wanted, God, Dead or Alive. And so now we're really going to start to see, as we explore this, the connection between the statement God is dead. Because this is clearly, as we see, he never mentions Nietzsche specifically, but clearly he's referencing Nietzsche in some of these ideas. So wanted, God, dead or alive. Anyone who thinks of Satan as evil should consider all the men, women, children, and animals who have died because it was God's will. And that's also a very good point, and something that always confused me very much as a Christian. Obviously, growing up as a Christian, all the evil in the world that occurs every day. Well, why is this happening? Oh, it's all part of God's will. It's all part of God's plan. And that never sat well with me, because it was just a big cop-out. It's like, well, why? Why is that God's will? Why is that part of God's plan? Well, we're just lowly humans, and we can't possibly fathom and understand the intricate, detailed mind of God.
See, I got told that same bullshit. Because if you sit here and think about it, now, how in the hell we're going to try to sit here and fathom the mind of an imaginary person that we never even saw, nor seen, touched, even heard of? The only thing we know about is his so-called existence. The devil too. This is why religion. Because religion paints you a picture but don't give you facts. See, that's the problem. That's just my view. It's just my view. I'm not saying it's true. That's just my view. That's just how I think.
Well, no, that's just dumb. That's just a stupid interpretation. That's just it just doesn't make any logical sense. It's not that, oh, we're too dumb to understand it. It's just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's logical and ridiculous on many different fronts. All right, so let's just one moment here. Let me bring something up real quick. Okay. And so let me just get the book back on screen so I can see where we are at. So LaVey continues by saying, but if God is in complete control and as benign or harmless as he is supposed to be, why does he allow these things to happen? Too long have religionists been falling back on their Bibles and rule books to prove or disprove, justify, condemn, or interpret. So same point that LaVey is really driving home here is, look, if you look around you and if you think Satan is evil, well, think about all the horrible things, all the deaths, all the tragedies that occur in the world because it's God's will. Why does he allow these things to happen?
Question. Sorry, y'all. But question. Everybody want to know. Everybody want to know. Why does God let this happen? If God is the person that protects everything, then why does he let this happen? Why is this God's will? Why is it that you have? Why is it God's will that you do all this bull crap that the world goes through, and the only explanation they got is it's God's will? Why is that? What is his will? Do anybody have a copy of this? Real talk. Do anybody have a copy of this? I ain't trying to sound stupid, but it sounds like a stupid question. But you know what I mean.
And basically that everyone who subscribes to religion is trying desperately to make excuses that just fall flat. And what a point that I want to make here, and I've said this multiple times, is that you can know with certainty that the God of Christianity does not exist, because the God of Christianity is described as all-loving, all-knowing, and all-powerful. Yet also in Christianity, souls go to hell. Well, if you think about it, if God truly were all-loving, he would desire to prevent from going to hell. But he doesn't. And that means he's not all-powerful. But if he can stop souls from going to hell, but doesn't, that means he's not all-loving. So the fact that souls go to hell and God does not prevent this from happening shows a logical impossibility, because God would have to either be not all-loving, not all-knowing, or not all-powerful for this to occur. So the existence of God is literally, as described in traditional Christianity, is a literal impossibility. You can know that God does not exist as much as you can know 2 + 2 doesn't equal 5. You can be as sure that God does not exist as sure as 5. Now, there's some counter arguments that people try to give for this, which are just absolutely crazy. One of them is, oh, well, it's because of free will. God gives humans free will. And so humans choose to go. It's humans choosing to go to hell. It's not that God.
Okay. Now, if God gave will, then I should have free will to sit here and do everything that I need to do to get my life together, but I don't, because of science itself. But shit, you gotta sit here and think about it though. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm not 100% with this dude right here. I'm not. Yeah, he got some good, but I'm not 100% behind this dude at all. But he do have some pretty good logics. He do have a pretty good explanation. He has an argument that he can fight. But I'm still not behind him on it. That's just my opinion.
Wants them to go to hell, or God. But first of all, and God is just allowing justice to occur. Well, think about this, in that in terms of the Bible, God saying either love me or burn for eternity. How is that a free choice? That's like an abusive partner saying, love me or I'm going to beat you. Is that a just choice? Is that a loving choice? Is that a fair choice?
See what I'm saying? Because the past even said this, the options on the table. It's either go to hell. Simple as that. But if God's all loving, hell should be deleted. Everybody go to heaven. You know what I mean? So obviously, yeah, I feel him on that. I see the loophole. This is why I tell you, do not believe these books. These books are written by another man. Don't nobody know this shit for show. Just like the LaVeya book, Satan book, wrote by man. Bible, wrote by man. There's 18 different versions of it. Stephen King ain't even got shit on this. Shit, she need to get her shit together. Yeah, see, I ain't know Stephen King a woman, did you? Uh-huh. But anyways, though.
Can we really call that free will? Absolutely not. That's unloving and unjust. And so God saying, well, either love me or hell for eternity is completely incompatible with the attribute of all loving, let alone just. But even if we accept that that is true, even if we try and ignore that part, which we shouldn't, but even if we do, consider the fact that if God truly were all loving, he would not only, he would eventually give some of those souls at least a second chance. Because remember, hell is an eternity of torture for all eternity, an eternity of torture. So if God were really all loving, at some point, he would give at least some of those souls a second chance. Because remember, according to Christianity, you could be the worst person imaginable. You could be a mass murderer. And just imagine the worst person doing every, things that I can't say on YouTube because they would, just imagine there's the worst person possible. But at the very last minute, they ask for God's forgiveness. According to Christianity, they're going to go to heaven. Now, imagine the flip side of that. Imagine the best, most perfect, loving, nice, kindest person you've ever met in your life, just completely selfless, doing good deeds every single day, but they don't believe in God. According to Christianity, they're going to go to hell and burn for all eternity.
Just like I said, the options on the table. If you don't believe in God, you go to hell. But yet, though, if God's all loving, why is hell an option? See what I'm saying? I'm not nobody. These are just questions I have. I'm not trying to convert nobody. I don't want nobody saying, yo, he trying to get me to worship the devil and shit. Nah, this is not that. I'm not trying to convert nobody. These are just questions I have. And yeah, he has good logic and a battle he can fight, but I'm not behind him.
So first of all, is that absolutely not. That's not just whatsoever. And second of all, you could see, like, why give that soul a second chance at some point? No, oh, you messed up. You didn't get the answer right, so you're going to be tortured forever. None of these are compatible with the attributes of all loving, all knowing, and all powerful. So just my point is that you can know with certainty that the God of the Bible does not exist. It's not like, oh, well, maybe, there's a small chance. No, there's no chance. Just like there's no chance that 2 + 2 = 78. No, obviously not. I don't have to bet. I don't have to have faith. No, I know. And you can know. So anyway, let's continue here. I always get, I'm getting a little triggered on this topic because I'm an ex-Christian and I was, indoctrinated into all this bullshit, which absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. But let's continue.
Y'all caught that, right? See how I threw in there that Stephen King was a woman? Got caught in some bullshit, throwing bullshit out there. Yeah, that's how he just did. He threw that out there. It's like, look, I caught in this bullshit. This is why I'm telling y'all this. They indoctrinate me in this shit. I got a doctrine in this bullshit. So now I'm getting out here and see that this world is full of shit. Oh. I get back at y'all later on this one. Next take.
And by the way, on that note, some people wondering, like, why are people Satanists? Well, this is one reason that people become Satanists is because you see how, even me, like I'm getting kind of triggered, and I've worked through, well, Satanism can offer a healthy way or a cathartic release for those who've been indoctrinated into Christianity or some mainstream religion, because basically you are taking on the role of the adversary. You've been basically conditioned by God, conditioned by religion, and so in rebellion, you are taking, because according to Satanism, Satan is the archetype of rebellion, of the adversary. And so you are taking on that role, the satanic archetype of rebelling and being adversarial to God and Christianity, which can be very cathartic for individuals who've been indoctrinated their whole life. Now, again, I was never Christian. I was never a Satanist. I was never, a part of the philosophy of Satanism. I preferred Nietzschean philosophy. And the reason why that I prefer Nietzschean philosophy, by the way, is because Satanism is more focused on indulgence and living life according to the flesh and embracing human nature, which is all great. That's fine. That's great. Great stuff. But Nietzschean philosophy is more about the will to power and overcoming and going beyond human nature, creating a new type of self, a powerful self. So Nietzschean philosophy is very powerful, where it's about becoming a Superman, an Übermensch, as Nietzsche puts it, and someone who is overcoming all boundaries and limitations and stopping at nothing to become the best possible actualized version of themselves that they can possibly be. And so Nietzsche was highly critical of Christianity. He wrote a book called The Antichrist, which we read from in the video previous to this. And so for me, I was never really drawn to Satanism because I was already exposed to Nietzschean philosophy, which I felt was more powerful. And
like I said, I have read and went through a lot of these religions while I was sitting back going through all these little times and places that these motherfuckers have sent me. I done learned a lot of shit, read a hell of a lot of books. And I'm sitting here trying to tell y'all that Nietzsche, I use that philosophy in a lot of shit that I do. And a lot of things that I do, I use the Nietzsche philosophy. Be the exact you could do regardless of the. Yeah, you're going to roll in us. Yeah, you're going to have downfalls. That's life. Yeah, you're going to have other things go on. That's life. That's the Nietzschean philosophy. Nietzsche just basically tells you, hey, suck it up, deal with it. But yet at the same time, be the exact best at what you can do. Do not let nobody knock you off your pedestal. People are going to say you, people are going to say this about you. People is going to say a whole bunch of negative things about you. But one thing you got to do is be the exact best at what you do. Step outside of yourself and become the best self, the best of yourself in that creation. That's the Nietzschean philosophy. See, I ain't think I knew this shit, did you?
And I also, whereas Satanism is cathartic for some because they're taking on the role of the rebel and the adversary, I didn't like being in the realm of that Christian. It was too close because it's very much like a response to Christianity. A lot of it is built, and Satanism has become its own thing these days. But when you look at this, a lot of this is a reaction to Christianity. And so it's in a certain way, it's kind of dependent on Christianity. You could argue that, of course, it's become a lot more of its own thing these days. But that's how I felt at the time, and that's very much what the vibe that the Satanic Bible gives. Now, Luciferianism is different. Luciferianism is based on the archetype of Lucifer, which is much older than the Bible. Lucifer is another word for the morning star, represents wisdom and enlightenment. And so Luciferian Christianity, it's a way of understanding reality in the world. But we're not talking about that today. So let's not. I just wanted to give a little bit of background on where I'm coming from and whatnot. But I see the liberating effects that Satanism can have, and I definitely respect that. So it says here, LeVay says, the Satanist that man and the action and reaction of the universe responsible for everything and doesn't mislead himself into thinking that someone cares. So the Satanist is realizing, essentially, that everything that occurs, humans are responsible for. Essentially that, if something terrible happens, the Satanist doesn't go, oh, that was God's will or God had a plan. A Satanist would go, well, why did that terrible thing happen? How can we fix that? Because we realize that, if there's some war going on and people are dying or what have you, someone might be, oh, it's God's will. God has a plan. Whereas the Satanist goes, no, what can we do here to rectify this? Because this is our own doing. This is the repercussions of humanity.
Which goes back to what I just sit there and said, the Nietzsche philosophy. It teaches you the other side of it. It's basically giving you the other side of the story. It's basically giving you the other side of Christianity. The shit where they saying is God's will, they saying, nah, deal with it, bruh. It's not that. It's us. We need to correct us before we can think about correcting anything else. It's basically telling you the truth. It's basically speaking the opposite of the Bible. I done read the Nietzsche, and I done read Nevaeh, I done read all that shit. When I was locked, sorry, information. But yo, I done read this shit.
LaVey continues by saying, no longer will we sit back and accept fate without doing anything about it just because it says so in chapter such and such, Psalm so-and-so. So that's that. The Satanist knows that praying does absolutely no good. In fact, it actually lessens the chance of success. And this is a very important point. It lessens the chance for the devoutly religious to often sit back complacently and pray for a situation which, if they were to do something about it on their own, could be accomplished much quicker. So LaVey is saying, we accept that we are the masters of our lives and we are responsible for what happens in the world. And we're not going to sit back and do nothing just because of some verse in the Bible. We're not just going to sit back and pray about it, because we realize that prayer is absolutely no good. In fact, lessens the chance of success, because when you pray about it, instead of taking action yourself and fixing the problem, you're waiting for some deity to intervene. Now, this is an important point. So let's talk about this just for a second. Does prayer work?
Didn't I just talk the same shit? Oh my God. Yo, see, this is what I'm saying. I'm not 100% behind this dude, but he do got some good ass points because it shows the same shit that I read. Just saying.
Very complicated question. The answer is that it has to do with psychology. So if you are praying to, it can kind of, it operates on the placebo effect, and it operates on instilling goals within the unconscious mind. So if you, for example, there's different ways to look at this. If you are praying to get a promotion at work, right? So let's say every day you pray to God that you get a promotion for work. Can that help? It might. And the reason why it might is because what you're doing is, if you're praying for this every day, it's not because God is going to do anything, but it's because you're programming your unconscious mind. Your unconscious is picking up on the fact like, oh, this is important. Kind of like when you have, if you don't, here's a good example. If you don't remember your dreams, if you start to take a dream, if you start a dream journal and start recording the little bits and pieces of dreams that you might remember, your unconscious will go, oh, they're writing this down. This must be something important. So I'm going to bring it into consciousness, and you'll start to remember your dreams more because your unconscious will have as important. So if you're praying every day to get a promotion at work, your unconscious might go, oh, hey, well, this is something very important. And so you might be more inclined throughout your day, because you've been focusing on it, to do some things that could improve your chances of getting a promotion at work. Maybe you'll, start to be on time more.
I said that shit. I said it. About how you programmed. Said that. That's the man. Yo. I swear to God, man, this motherfucker be saying some of the same shit I be saying. Just some of it, not all of it. That's why I'm saying me and this motherfucker don't be 100. But he says some of the shit that I be on. And I keep trying to tell motherfuckers, there's more to this shit than what motherfuckers is saying. There's more. They handed us the bullshit. There's more.
And dress more appropriately, or be better at customer service, or I don't know, whatever, because your unconscious is pushing you, going, hey, this is important, so let's make this happen. So it's you, it's not God. So it can kind of work, but LaVey has a very, very good point by saying it can lessen the chance of success, because people will sit back and pray rather than doing about it. And so, right, that's sort of the flip side of it as well. That is also a problem, because conversely, you might have someone who is praying for something, let's say, oh, I'm going to pray to God for wealth. I want to be wealthy. Not that that's something that someone would pray for, but some people do. A lot of people do that. And so because they believe that God is going to provide them with wealth, instead of going out there and starting a business, they just believe that God's going to bring it to them. Then they're actually going to not have that occur. Now,
right,
we have to bring this and realize, because I know a lot of people who are into spirituality watch my channel, this also applies to things like meditation and the law of attraction. So the law of attraction, same kind of idea. People believe that, oh, if I just put on my vision board that I'm going to make money, and if I just repeat my affirmations every day about wealth, I'm just going to start getting checks in the mail. Doesn't work like that. The law of attraction is a very watered down version of esoteric principles, where it's just one part of the equation. You have to have planning and action along with it as well. Will, planning, and action.
Which goes back to what I'm saying. This is why my label is named Hustle No Rest. Because if you don't put in the action, how in the hell can you say it's yours? How? How? There's no laziness involved in Hustle No Rest whatsoever. Everything about Hustle No Rest is a hustle. Everything. That's why it's called Hustle No Rest, because of hustle. But anyways, so that's something else.
Along with intention, like the law of attraction is just the intention element. The intention element is helpful because it primes your unconscious, but you have to pair that with will, planning, and action as well. You have to have the will to accomplish it. You have to have the right plan to accomplish it, and you have to put it into action. So we have to be careful of that, as well as meditation. Meditation, there's so many positive effects with meditation. I'm not saying meditation is bad. There's so many positive effects of meditation. But I went to this group one time, and they're like, oh, we're going to change the world. We're going to change the world. You know, there's so many problems going on in the world. And so what was their master plan to change the world? Meditate. They're all going to meditate and like send their good vibes out there to stop all the wars. Oh, we're going to do that. And they're like, oh, and then on this particular day, we're all going to meditate on these crystals, and we're going to charge these crystals with our positive energy. And they're like batteries now. And these crystals will help change. No. Now, that's not to say meditation is bad. Meditation is bad. But do you see how this people see something that's wrong in the world, and they feel guilty about it, or they feel like they should do something about it, or they have empathy. And if you have something like that, like prayer or meditation, that becomes a big excuse. Like, oh, this is accomplishing something, so they don't actually do something to help. You know, they don't actually go out and do something that would help change the world because they feel it eases the psychological tension because it's like they're doing something. Oh, well, I'm doing my part because I'm praying about it, or I'm doing my part meditating about it. That's not helping. So, and again, I want to point out, there's a lot of positive things that meditation can do, but we have to not use it as an excuse to be lazy or to not actually put work in. Same thing with transforming the self. Like, it takes a lot of work to transform the self. Meditation can play a part in that. It's just one piece of the pie. And just going to meditate all day long. Elements that one has to put in as well, and that then becomes a hindrance. So we have to be careful about how we approach these things, how we understand these things, and how we apply these things to our lives.
That's why I'm sitting here trying to say, laziness ain't nothing. You don't accomplish nothing by sitting back asking for it. You got to go out and take it. That's basically what life is. If you want it, you got to take it. You ain't got time to sit on your ass and wait for it. Go take it. Let people know how serious you are.
And anyway, let's continue with this. So LeVay says the Satanist, realizing that anything he gets is of his own doing, takes command of the situation instead of praying to God for it to happen. So again, same sort of idea. the Satanist realizes that he's in control, or they are in control, they are in command, and they're able to, it's not, praying to God isn't going to do anything. And then LeVay says, positive thinking and positive action add up to results. Again, really great. So a lot of people think that Satanists are all evil and dark and scary. And there's definitely some very controversial stuff.
Did you catch that? Right there in the Satan Bible, it says it. Positive think, positive act. This is why I sit here and say, don't waste your time worrying about the next person, because the next person really ain't that damn worried about you. Real talk. The next person is only worried about what they can get off of you. The world don't want to work. It don't want to put in no work. It wants to get what it can get off the next person. But yet at the same time, try to front like it did its stunt. Yo, that's something else. But anyway, let's get back into the video.
In the Book of Satan, or the Satanic Bible. But you can see here that there's also positivity as well. Positive thinking and positive action adds up to results. And this is, and so LeVay's brand of magic is actually much more powerful than something like the law of attraction.
I said that wrong as hell, but you know what I mean.
Law of attraction. Well, we'll later on, if you want, by the way, put in the comments if you want to hear what satanic magic is all about, because I'll do some videos on satanic magic if you'd like. But satanic magic is actually a lot more powerful than something like the law of attraction, because you'll notice here, LeVay says positive thinking and what? Positive action add up to results. Whereas, something like the law of attraction really emphasizes positive thinking. They might throw in like little bits of action here and there, but that's not the focus. It's very much on just like, oh yeah, you'll just manifest it by making a vision board and positive affirmations, and like attracts like. That's just one piece of the pie, one part of the equation. Anyway, let's continue here. LeVay says, the Satanist knows that praying does no good, and confessing to another being like himself accomplishes even less and is furthermore degrading. So going against the Catholic idea of confession. As a Christian, I never had to do that. But yeah, I mean, I'd imagine that could feel very degrading. I've never had that experience. I've never had to do that, but I could certainly see that. And I had done like a confession sort of at like, I went to.
It's all in there.
Bible camp a couple times. That was just a brainwashing center. But yeah, there wasn't ever confession, but there was this thing where you would go to the campfire and confess your sins and throw in a stick of wood, I guess, to like signify getting rid of the sin or something. It wasn't mandatory, but I did it because I was a good little Christian boy. I wasn't someone just going through the motions. That's what always annoys me when people are like, well, you weren't really a Christian, or you were. No, I was a very dedicated.
Once more, I'm not saying I was dedicated, because I wasn't. I wasn't that dedicated. But then again, at the same time, I done preached it. I done talked about it. I done experienced it. But yet at the same time, my mind always been open.
Christian, and I tried my hardest. And so, yeah, anyway, we didn't have something like confession, but I kind of get it because I had something that was in that ballpark, I suppose. So, and by the way, that wasn't just to like a single, it was to that was everyone at the campfire you were confessing your sins to, basically. So it's a lot of, it wasn't just like a priest or something. It was a lot of people. Anyway. So when a Satanist does something wrong, he realizes that it is natural to make a mistake. And if he is truly sorry about what he's done, he will learn from it and take care, not same thing again. Great. Totally on board with that. I think that's fantastic. And by the way, do you see how the Book of Lucifer is laying out the philosophy of Satanism, where the Book of Satanism was more just a criticism of Christianity and God? This still obviously contains a criticism, but you can tell that the structure of the philosophy itself is also being laid out. People confess their sins so that they can clear their conscience conscience and be free to go out and sin again, usually the same sin. And this is also a good point. So he's basically saying Satanists, when they realize they did something wrong, they admit sorry about it, and they try not to do it again and try to learn from it. Whereas he's saying religious people will just go and confess to get rid of the guilt, and then go out and sin and sin and sin again. And I think that he mentioned this because LeVay worked at a carnival.
Which goes back to what I say, ain't no better teacher than experience himself. Don't get me wrong, a lot of this is connecting with how I roll. But still, again, on top of that, nothing about this is me saying that I'm with this, that I'm down with Lucifer, or that I'm down with the devil, or anything like that. That's not me whatsoever. I'm just a person with an open mind who's a free thinker. That's all.
In this, he talked about how he would see men come, women taking off their clothes at the carnival, and then he would see them on Sunday with their families asking for forgiveness, and then the next week they'd be right back at the carnival doing the same thing again and again and again. So he was very much had firsthand experience of that hypocrisy. So this is interesting point. So LeVay says the Catholics believe that the Protestants are doomed to hell simply because they do not belong to the Catholic Church. In the same way, many splinter groups of the Christian faith, such as the evangelical or revivalist churches, believe that the Catholics are heathens who worship graven images. Even though the God in all these religions is basically the same, each regard the way chosen by the other as reprehensible, and to top it all off, religionists actually pray for one another. So LeVay is basically saying, even like Catholics think that Christians are going to hell, Protestant Christians, and Protestant Christians think that Catholics are going to go to hell. And each denomination thinks the other. So it's even within the religion itself, it's completely splintered, and they're all praying for each other. And that's absolutely true. Being raised as we were considered non-denominational, but yeah, we thought that Catholics were, because they would like pray to Mary, and we'd be like, oh, you can't pray to Mary. Jesus is the only one you can pray to. And so, yeah, we
see what I mean? See what I mean? Whole religion thing is all about keeping you divided. That's the whole religion thing. Excuse me. That's the whole religion thing, is about keeping you divided. If you can't be divided and they can't keep you in one type of category, you are considered an outlaw and shit like that. That's why this world is too quick to label.
We pretty much believe that a lot of people who were part of these different denominations were going to go to hell, which is really, and he's calling it all hypocritical and BS and splintered. One thing I do want to point out, though, about this is like even when I put out my video on Satanism versus Luciferianism, I saw a lot of fights in the comments between different, whether it be like Satanists and Luciferians and or just like, oh no, I don't know. I just saw a lot of fighting. And the thing is that those who are pagan, it really should be about uniting. Don't get so caught up in the system that it becomes a divisive religion like mainstream Christianity and right-hand path religion. Unity and seeing common ground. So, for example, like Satanists and Luciferians, they believe different things, but so what? Like, they shouldn't be opposed to one another. Like for me, I am not a Satanist. I'm not saying it. There are certain things that I disagree when it comes to Satanism. Disagree with. It has a lot of hedonistic elements. It's a materialist philosophy. but I'm not out there being divisive with Satanists. I think that Satanism has it can be very cathartic for a lot of people and have an important role to play.
See, I kind of agree with Satanism. I kind of don't. The only part that I agree with Satanism is the free thinking. But then the other part where I don't agree with Satanism is the part where they're trying to divide you. Because I'm not with division. But yet, you have the right to go down whatever path you want to go down. You have that right. But me, I just don't believe in division. I believe, everybody's here and we all serving the same cause. And so going through the same shit. That's why I don't believe in division. I believe in we all together. We all in this together. That's the part where the world's trying to divide us and take us here and take you there and say this person's this and this person that and this person is this and this person is that. But if we both come together like butt cheeks and become this shit, can't nothing fuck with us. Just saying. Just saying.
And so I'm not out there being divisive about it. And so my point is that for all those who are part of, these different things, try and get along with each other, please. Pretty please. Like, we have enough crazy religions in the world fighting amongst each other, let alone people like arguing about the definition between Satan and Lucifer. Yes, I have a certain definition of Lucifer, and I have a certain definition of Satan. But if someone comes along and says, oh, well, I define Satan this way and I define Lucifer this way, I'm not going to be like, well, fuck you dumb idiot. I'm just going to be like, oh, okay, well, that's not how I see it, but that's how you see it. That's fine. That's cool. Just like, for example, I interpret Christ as Christ consciousness and being an enlightened state of mind, whereas a Satanist interprets Christ as, something totally evil and despicable and a servant of God and all that. And that's a perfectly defined, coming from that angle, that makes sense. I'm not going to argue with them about it. Anyway, my point is like, let's get along. Okay. I mean, we really should. That's what it's all about. It's about you and coming together, recognizing commonalities and celebrating diversity. As long as we're all on the same page about major issues, right? As long as we're on the same page about human rights and human decency and creating a better world, things like that.
Yeah, though, cause see, homie cool and everything. I ain't got nothing against him whatsoever. It's just that me and him got some of the same ideas, because before I even hear the next thing he get ready to say, I mess around and say the same thing that he getting ready to say. Cause he connected with me on certain things. But other than that, me and this dude is not 100 with each other.
So anyway, so I like this. He's talking about people who pray for one another, and LeVay says, "What a simperingly polite way of saying I hate your guts." He's saying prayer is a polite way of saying I hate your guts. It's the thinly disguised device known as praying for your enemies, and that's true as well. It's so insulting when someone comes up to you and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to pray for you." That is so insulting, for a number of reasons. First of all, it's just very intrusive, because let's say your family is like, "Oh, I'm going to pray for you." What if you then were like, "Oh, I'm going to pray to Satan for you," or I'm going to do a satanic ritual for you"?
Nah, man.
Well, that would be super offensive, right? Like, oh my God, you saw this so offensive. Well,
hey, but yo, if that's your religion, they can't say nothing about it, because they say they gonna pray for you. You say you gonna do a satanic ritual for them. What can they say? What can they say? That it did. Then they gonna get mad and want to fight you.
It's just the same thing. It's the same thing that they're doing to you, just from the flip side. So it's gonna balance and unfair and very intrusive. in my opinion. If you don't care, it doesn't matter. But I find it to be intrusive and offensive. And plus, on top of that, like LeVay's saying that it's a way of saying I hate your guts, is because when you say I'm going to pray for you, what you're essentially saying is there's something wrong with you. You're fucked. Like, oh my God. Oh, fuck, I'm going to pray for you, you fucking horrible person. So when you say I'm going to pray for you, that's implying that you're broken. Because that's what the Christian religion is about. All humans are broken, dirty, sinful. Someone says, I'm going to pray for you. I know that they're looking at me as a dirty, broken, sinful, flawed, disgusting piece of trash. And so for I'm going to pray for you is an insult. And a disguised way of saying, I hate your guts. And I've seen this as well, too. Like I get a lot of comments, a lot of terrible comments from religious people. They'll say the most awful things. And they'll be like, but I'll pray for you. But you're in my prayers. It's like, fuck off, man. It's so stupid. Anyway, so LeVay continues by, nevertheless, if a man has not lived his life in accordance with the regulations of his faith, he can at the last minute call a clergyman to his deathbed for final absolution. That's the point that I made before. LeVay is pointing out the hypocrisy here, where LeVay is saying that you can have the most horrible person, the worst person in this world, the worst person in the world, mass murderer, and if at the very last minute he confesses and believes in God, he can go to heaven. LeVay is pointing out how ridiculous it is. But here's an interesting point LeVay makes in that context. LeVay says the Yazidis, a sect of devil worshippers, take a different viewpoint. So these are those, because remember, LeVay and Satanism is atheistic. They don't believe that Satan is real. But this sect of devil worshippers do. And this is an interesting point that LeVay makes. He says, they believe that God is all powerful, but also all forgiving. And so accordingly, they feel that it is the devil whom they must please, as he is the one who rules their lives while here on earth. They believe so strongly that God will forgive all their sins once they have been given the last rites, that they feel no need to concern themselves with the opinion God may hold of them while they live. So that's very interesting. So these devil worshippers are essentially like, okay, well, God's all loving and God's all forgiving, and the devil is the one that fucks with us while we're alive. So we're going to worship and please the devil so we can have good lives. And then right before we die, we're going to ask for forgiveness because God's going to forgive us. So we might as well do that. So that's LeVay's point. LeVay and Satanism, but that's what, interesting point. And LeVay says, with all the debates about whether or not God is dead, if he isn't, he had better have Medicare. So let me see where we're at here. Okay, a couple more things, because I want to talk about Nietzsche and the death of God. But let me see. All right, just one more thing that I want to read here. So this section is called "The God You Save May Be Yourself." And LeVay says, all religions of a spiritual nature are inventions of man. He has created an entire system of gods with nothing more than his carnal brain. Just because he has an ego and cannot accept it, he has to externalize it into some great false god. And so I agree that a lot of religions have externalized the self into an external being, a fantasy being, where I talk about this a lot in my work, where it's power self-projection. You're giving away your power to an externalized figure, whether that's a god or a celebrity or a politician. You can project what should be yourself onto someone else and then worship that figure. That's what's happening. But see, I do not agree that all religions of a spiritual nature are inventions of man. So this is where, Satanism is very materialist. They believe that matter is the only thing it exists. The physical world is all there is, where we can understand, of course, that there's a metaphysical existence. And that's what my second book, Meta-Rationalism, is all about, is about understanding the metaphysical aspect of reality, the immaterial aspect of reality, rationally, understanding that we are mathematical beings and eternal beings, and there is more to reality than matter, but we can understand rationally, not in terms of like having faith in some God in the sky, but and through the principle of sufficient reason, we can understand these ideas. So this particular, I don't agree with that. If man insists on externalizing his true self in the form of God, then why fear his true self in fearing God? Why praise his true self in praising God? Why remain externalized from God in order to engage in ritual and religious ceremony in his name? Could it be that when he closes the gap between himself and his God, he's a demon of pride creeping forth, the very embodiment of Lucifer's myths? He no longer can view himself in two parts, the carnal and the spiritual, but sees them as one, and then the abysmal horror discovers that they are only the carnal and always were. Okay, so there's some points in here that I agree with, some that I don't. The parts that I do agree with is he's saying that when an individual who is religious sees the gap between himself and God closing, meaning when the religious person, let me continue. He sees the demon of pride creeping forth. So basically, the religious person does not see themselves as divine. They do not close the gap between them and God because they see that as the epitome of evil, the very embodiment of Lucifer. Because remember, Lucifer is the liberator. Lucifer wanted to overthrow God. Lucifer told humanity that they could become gods. So Lucifer represents apotheosis and becoming God. And so he's saying that religious people see that as the ultimate sin, and thus they don't close that gap. And so, yeah, there's this unbridgeable gap between you and the divine in mainstream religion, which is super ironic that mainstream religion actually strips your divinity away from you. And it places an unbridgeable gap between you and God. Rather than uniting you with the divine, it breaks you off from the divine. And so that's a great point. And they've made it the ultimate evil and the ultimate sin to be associated with the divine, to understand oneself as divine. So I agree with that. But then it says when he closes the gap, they unite the carnal and the spiritual as one, and then realizes that only the carnal exists. So basically, he's saying, oh, like human representing carnality and God representing spirituality. When he closes the gap, he combines them as one, but then realizes that only the carnal is what exists. Only the flesh is what exists. So basically, God is real. God doesn't exist. The flesh is all that there is. The carnal is all that there is. So in the gap, they realize that spirituality and God is an illusion, and that only human nature is what is true. So this I don't agree with. I agree with the first point, but I believe that we are the flesh is just a projection of a more fundamental mathematical reality, a reality of energy, a reality of frequency. So there very much is a, we would call a spiritual or mental aspect to reality. And this is just mind. Our mind is the subjective element of reality, but also the objective element of it in terms of its form. So it serves a dual purpose. It's kind of known as like the unity of subject and object in philosophy and Hegelian philosophy and some occult traditions as well. It's known as the great work. The unification of subject-object is the great work in things like Freemasonry, etc.
But still, in your own aspect, you don't consider yourself your own God. You don't consider yourself your own mental person, your own mental. Because think about it. In order for you to actually make things happen, you have to get out here and show effort and show you're hungry and show that you want this shit bad as hell. That's the only way you can make shit happen. Yeah, at that point, I agree with him. Praying don't really do shit for you. But then again, praying does a lot for you. And it really don't do a damn thing for you. On one hand, it frees your mind. It helps you think. It frees your thinking pattern. But then again, on another hand, if you don't put in no action, then what is all that praying? You know what I mean? You just can't wish just hope for something to happen. You got to put in action. That's the main thing.
So I disagree that the flesh and the carnal is the only thing that exists. I think that's a highly illogical and irrational position to take. It becomes a religion and a religion of empiricism rather than understanding rationally and logically. Just like, remember before I showed you how we can rationally know that God must exist or God does not exist, logically and rationally. The Christian God, not just any conception of God, but specifically the Christian God. We can know that God logically cannot exist. Well, likewise, we can logically know that reality is fundamentally mathematical and material and that we are eternal. Now, I can't explain all that right now because it would take a very long time. It's not simple like understanding, the idea of disproving the pretty simple. It's a pretty basic idea. It's not something that takes a lot of brain power. But this is actually something, and again, it's in my second. If you want information on that, there's 500 damn pages of it. It's more than you want. You'll be like, oh, please stop talking about it because there's so much in it. But anyway, so that's one point I disagree with. And then religious faith in lies have waned. It is because man has become closer to himself and farther from God, closer to the devil. He may come forth in splendor, proclaiming, I am a Satan, down, for I am the highest embodiment of human life. So, I mean, I appreciate the way that this is written, and it's a very, it shakes things up. It's fiery, but you can see it is very much embodying the satanic archetype of bow before me. I am the highest embodiment of human life. And I don't really perspective. I don't, we should be asking people to bow before us. And I know even in like a metaphorical way, I don't think that is the right, because this is when you start getting to the idea of like, we are the masters of reality, and we are.
Bow down before me. I am a king. A fucking king.
And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that we're the masters of reality, but a lot of people who get up in occult stuff don't understand the whole picture and then start being, the masters and the petty conscious humans who can't possibly understand what we're talking about should be the ones to serve us, or those poor stupid humans couldn't possibly understand this information, so we're gonna hide this information from them or not tell them because they're too dumb to be able to understand it. I don't like that. Instead of the archetype of the master, I much prefer the archetype of the teacher, because the archetype of the teacher, a true teacher, what does a true teacher want? A true teacher wants nothing more than their student to surpass them. Like, that's the sign of a great teacher, and that's all true teachers. A teacher wants, they care about their student. They want to help their students, so much so that if the student learns so well that they become better than the teacher is like, that's awesome, I'm so proud of you. Rather than a master. A master doesn't want the lower figures to become higher than the master. That's not, you could have a more positive interpretation, but I think you see what I mean. I prefer the archetype of the teacher, which I associate with Christ and Lucifer, because my interpretations of Christ and Lucifer are the same archetype, that they represent wisdom, the liberator, bringing knowledge and understanding to humanity to reach higher consciousness, which is very different than the satanic interpretation of Lucifer, bringing knowledge, but it's knowledge of the satanic system, rather than knowledge to reach higher consciousness and understand existence, because Satanists deny metaphysical reality in general. LaVeyan Satanists tend to deny that. But what I want to bring in here for a minute is to talk about Nietzsche's concept of the death of God, because I think you'll find a lot of similarities here, and I want to talk about it a bit, because like I said, I was influenced by Nietzschean philosophy well before I heard about Satanism. Well, I mean, I heard about Satanism, but like read the Satanic Bible and really started to look into it. And Nietzschean philosophy, there's a lot of commonalities between it and Satanism, but it doesn't have the trappings of Satanism. It doesn't use those archetypes, and I just didn't really like. I'm not a huge fan type of Satan. Then that's just my choice. If that's an empowering archetype for you, that's totally fine.
Which goes back to what I'm saying when I said I read the shit. I've been reading on all these motherfucking religions. Which goes back to what I said in the Nietzsche philosophy, basically sit there and tells you the other side of the Bible. That's the Nietzsche philosophy. Sit here and tell you you have the power of basically you in control of your own universe. Deal with it. Out it. Get off your ass and handle it. That's the Nietzsche philosophy. But I don't know nothing though. I don't read.
And I think that it can be used in a positive way, but when balanced with other archetypes. Like I would balance the satanic archetype with the Luciferian archetype. Like I would balance the two, not like have one, like just focus on one. Possession where a very specific, anyway, so Nietzschean philosophy was very attractive to me because it was very powerful. And what I love about Nietzschean philosophy is that it's about going beyond human. And you don't find that in Satanism. Satanism is embracing human nature, indulgence.
Did not say that. I read it. Nietzsche philosophy, going beyond yourself, showing your beyond abilities, become the complete best at you and your surroundings. Nietzsche.
Accepting carnal desire. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But the very strong main emphasis in Nietzschean philosophy is becoming the highest form of yourself that you can possibly be, so much so that you're not even human anymore. Nietzsche said, what is great in man is that he is a bridge and not a destination. A bridge between the ape and the overman.
Facts. See, I ain't even see this shit. And he just said the same thing I just said. Cause I'll just sit here telling you, nigga, I've been reading in on this Nietzsche philosophy and all these religions. And come to find out, most of them saying the same shit. They just saying it in different words. Most of them saying the same shit. Religion is all about division. Trying to connect with what's comfortable to you. It's picking and grabbing. It's like a motherfucker nitpicking at you. That's my thing. To me, ain't no better religion than your own religion. As long as you believe, as long as you know there's a higher power and how to work that higher power and form it into your life, that's when you will understand. Understand? But anyways, like I said, that Nietzsche philosophy, I read in on that shit and I use that shit in my life a lot. I'm just saying.
So Nietzsche was saying that humans are just a transitory phase. Only thing good about them is that they're leading something better. They came from apes and will become the Ubermensch or the Overman. And so you can see that it's a very empowering for life. And that's been a big theme in my life. I've been constantly overcoming limitations and barriers and boundaries and creating myself. And I think we'd have a much better world if people were constantly creating themselves and transforming themselves. And so I don't agree with everything in Nietzschean philosophy by any means. I think there are some things that aren't great about it, especially as metaphysical positions.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of great stuff that can be learned from Nietzsche when synthesized with other philosophers and other ideas. So anyway.
See, my thing is, I'm not down in neither religion. See, I mix Nietzsche with Christian. Because that's life right there. Take like half a Christian and half a Nietzsche. Because most of Christian stuff is bullshit. Only half of that shit you can use. And Nietzsche. And with Nietzsche is some bullshit. But still only half of that shit you can use. But But now, like those Luciferian or Lucifers or Luciferian or Satanists or whatever you want to call it, them motherfuckers, that's a whole different level right there. Because they thinking pattern is way different than like those other ones. You can't balance that shit out.
Okay. I'm going to read to you this quote by Friedrich Nietzsche. So Nietzsche declared the death of God in his book, Thus Spake Zarathustra. And it goes like this. God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was the holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet owned, has bled to death under our knives? Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? And then another quote by Nietzsche is, once again, God is dead. But considering the state the species man is in, there will perhaps be caves for ages yet, which his shadow will be shown. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. Obviously, Nietzsche isn't saying that God is literally dead. Some people interpret it to mean that, but wrongly. That's not what he meant. He didn't mean that at all. But what it basically is saying is the belief in God or a higher power, especially the Christian God, lost its power and relevance in people's lives. So this idea was destroyed. So when he's talking about the death of God, he's pointing to the collapse of traditional religious values and beliefs and is of a more scientific way of thinking. So when he says we have killed him, he means that this shift was driven by human actions. It's our actions that caused this shift to occur through things like the Enlightenment, empiricism, rational thinking, a focus on individualism. So when he says all these things like, how can we bear this? What must we do to atone for all this? What he's basically saying is, can humanity handle the responsibility that comes with creating our own values and meaning? Basically, what gave humans meaning was God and religion. It told them what was right, what was wrong, gave them rituals, it gave them meaning, it gave them purpose. So Nietzsche is saying, with the death of God comes the loss of meaning and purpose, and ushers in an age of nihilism or meaninglessness. And Nietzsche's antidote to this, a lot of people say that Nietzsche was a nihilist. I don't see that, because Nietzsche hated nihilism. Nietzsche saw nihilism as a scourge and a curse, but he saw that it was coming. And so he saw that something must replace nihilism, something meaning and purpose must be interjected into reality. And Nietzsche's answer to that was the Übermensch, or the Overman, where it was about we become our own gods, basically. We create our own values, our own morals, our own traditions, and create our own purpose and our.
Exactly like I said, we become our own person, step outside of ourselves, become our own one. Be the best of you and your surroundings. Become of God. Nietzsche philosophy.
Life. Now, my position is different here. I believe that there is inherent purpose in me, because remember, Nietzsche was very against all metaphysics and was more about like the here and now. And but my beliefs are that this is a projection of a mathematical reality, meaningful, or teleological, meaning purposeful, and that I don't have time to get into all of it right now, but long story short, that the true purpose of life is to understand it and to enjoy it. To understand it means to understand our own nature, know thyself and you will know the universe and the gods, to realize that we are literally the gods of this reality, and then to enjoy our creation. And the more that we know and understand what we are, where we are, and the better experiences that we can build for ourselves. So we are here to have meaningful experiences, beautiful creations, and understand ourselves and our world better as the literal divine gods of this reality. And I'm not meaning that in like a metaphorical way. I mean, kind of, but I don't mean like, oh, well, we're gods because, you know, we take responsibility for our own actions. Mm-hmm. Of course, we should take responsibility for our own actions, but I mean, we are literally eternal mathematical entities whose frequency patterns underlying structure and ground, and that these particular avatars are just a particular way that we are having this localized experience at this moment in space and time. But anyway, but do you see this powerful idea that Nietzsche is putting forth, where we have killed God, so now we must take responsibility into our own hands and create our own values and meaning. So when he says we must become gods, he's saying that now we have the job of defining our own existence and morality. That's was something that God did before, but now it's our job to do that. So, and then going on, he says, but considering the state that the species of man is in, there will perhaps be caves for ages yet in which his shadow will be shown. So basically here, Nietzsche is saying that even though a lot of religious ideas and metaphysical ideas are being eroded away and destroyed, God being dead, he admits that religious beliefs are still vile. So this shadow of God represents the idea that the influence of these ideas are going to be there for a while. They might continue to hold power in society because it's that hard for humanity to move beyond them. So he's saying God is dead, but considering the state that the species man is in other words, being dumb, there will perhaps be caves yet for ages yet in which his shadows will be shown. In other words, even though we have shown that God does not exist, there are still people who are going to believe in God. And
in other words, there's going to be caves in which his shadow is shown. Which, in other words, there's going to be churches for miles and miles that is still preaching his word. That's basically what he's saying.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he uses the idea of cave. He says there will be caves for ages yet in which his shadow will be shown. A lot of great metaphor going on here where, cave represents sort of like a primitive existence. So, it's in the caves. It's in the primitive aspects that God's shadow will remain, not in the enlightened aspects, but in the cave aspects. And this is also, in my opinion, a reference to Plato's allegory of the cave. So Plato's allegory of the cave, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. It's about people who were born in a cave and chained up in a cave their entire life. They've never been outside this cave, and they've always been looking at a wall, and they've always seen shadows on the wall. That's it. That's the only thing that they've known their entire life is the shadows on the wall. So they believe that the shadows are real because that's all they know. And that's all they've seen is the shadows on the wall. And then I'm sure most of you have heard of Plato's allegory of the cave. If you haven't, go look it up because it's a really good story. It's basically about how one of the prisoners turns around finally and looks and sees that the shadows aren't real, that there's actually people, there'd be like shadows of, let's say, like a bunny rabbit or something. Well, he'd look behind him and see that, well, there's a person with a stick with a rabbit on it that's holding it in front of a fire. And so the shadow isn't real. It's that this illusion is being cast by this cutout of a bunny on a stick being held in front of a shadow to trick them and fool them. And so he sees that and then thinks, oh, well, that's what's real. But then he ends up, long story short, he ends up climbing outside of the cave and going into the real world. And then he's at first blinded by the sun. And this is the idea of when you first reach enlightenment, it's very disorienting. But when his eyes adjust, he looks around and then lo and behold, he sees an actual rabbit. And then so it wasn't the shadow, it wasn't the cutout, it was this thing up above that is the true and real thing, because of course we know reality itself to be an illusion, but in a certain way, certain interpretation. But in this allegory, the sun represents the illumination of the good, of the true, of the real world. So anyway, long story short, is probably referencing this, where he says, "For ages yet, the shadows of God will be shown in caves," and that there will still be people falling for this illusion, and it will still greatly affect the world. And I think we can look around and say that his prediction was pretty damn on point. So when we look at all this together, I find this to be, the satanic philosophy to be interesting, and I definitely see its value for sure. Personally, I prefer Nietzschean philosophy for self-transcendence rather than just focused more on indulgence in human nature or embracing human nature. There's a lot more of a to me, it's a lot more powerful and strong. And like I said, I don't agree with everything Nietzsche said. And I do find a lot of interesting ideas in the Satanic Bible. But by the way, this is definitely not the end of the Book of Lucifer. The Book of Lucifer is continuing to lay out philosophy of Satan. So the sections that are coming up that we will continue next week, if you want to see them, remember, put them in the comments if you want to see them. Here's the chapter headings: Evidence of a New Satanic Age, Hell, the Devil, and How to Sell Your Soul, Love and Hate, Satanic Sex. So there's still a lot more to go in the Book of Lucifer. Like I said, we're running out of time here, but if you want to see that, tell me in the comments below, and we will continue reading this. Check out the whole Bible. Check out my video on Lucifer versus Satanism versus Luciferianism to understand the Luciferian interpretation of Lucifer. And yeah, highly recommend checking out Nietzschean philosophy. Very inspiring as well. We'll probably read some more on my channel. If you want me to read some Nietzschean philosophy on my channel, tell me in the comments, and we'll do some live streams dedicated to Nietzschean philosophy. If you'd like to see that, we could read The Antichrist or Beyond Good and Evil or any of these books. Once again, if you're interested in my work, check out Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind. The link is in the description of the and become a member on YouTube. It helps out all the members only videos. Hit the join button right below this video. Helps out a lot. I appreciate it very much. And follow me on Spotify, Dawn of the New Earth. Thank you, my friends. Big shout out to all my supporters, and especially a big shout out to Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, DB, Nusalina, Christopher, Eon, and Vanessa.
All right, y'all. So basically, this is that. I'm going to get on up off of here and the stress. It just basically kick it on up out of here. Just basically had to just get y'all the lowdown of the Lucifer and check it on out. I'm about to go to bed. I holler at y'all. Rude dog. Sleepy as hell.